Peace, peace and elevation, family. It's your brother Mike X. Welcome to another clip from my YouTube channel, BruthaMikeXSpeaks. Black people, all people, but particularly black people, deserve grace. You know what I mean? Not judgment, not ridicule, not slander. You know what I mean? But grace. You know? Grace that calls for empathy. Grace that calls for compassion, you know, and that grace can only stem from an understanding of what black people have historically been through and put through, you know, particularly related to this message from what we have experienced historically, which leads to our condition and our conditioning presently. You know, grace. You know what I mean? And I point this message to particularly black people being able to give themselves and other black people amongst us grace. You know what I mean? Understanding, empathy, and compassion. You know? I know a lot of times we have been made to feel that in order for us to move forward in our lives, that we had to seek the grace outside of us, of white people and others, you know, because we've been conditioned to believe that we can't depend upon ourselves to move forward in life. You know what I mean? We've been conditioned to look upon ourselves as dependent upon others, you know, to just be victims of our own sad lot in life, you know. But that has come from a system and a systemized portrayal of black people and black communities that portray us as lowlifes. You know what I mean? Criminal by nature, you know, fatherless homes, you know, absentee dads, you know. And those are portrayals. That have been pushed forward to condition us to think of ourselves in that lowly way and condition the world to look at us in that lowly way. And so it calls for people who have a more well-rounded understanding of why black people sometimes, a lot of times, are caught up in habits and actions and thoughts and beliefs that are self-destructive, that are self-hating, that are based upon fear and dependency, upon others, white people and others, to move forward in life. Political parties, you know what I mean? An understanding of why we've become disconnected from being able to rely upon ourselves, Again, we need a grace that comes from an understanding that there's a reason why we hate so heavily upon ourselves. There's a reason why a lot of times that we're caught up, in some of the worst types of behaviors, ratchet behaviors, gang affiliation, jailhouse consciousness, sexual promiscuity, and other low vibration activities. That is because we have been divorced a lot of times, or have never known or been shown that we have been more than those low vibrations. We have greatness in our history. We have been kings and queens and politicians and inventors. We have been creative and imaginative. We have been godly, in this world, amongst ourselves and in worldly interactions. Not just here in America, but also in other parts of the world. There is evidence that we have been more than what we are commonly portrayed to be through the so-called education system, through the movies, through the music. There's an agenda. It has been an agenda to portray us to the world as animals, as out of control, as dangerous, as violent. And this agenda serves to keep us from being able to come together in a positive, loving, caring way within ourselves as a distinct cultural, ethnic group, so that we can begin to take positive control over our existence socially, so that we can unify, so that we can then become politically empowered, economically empowered, to take control over our own communities. There's an agenda to reduce us to dependency and powerlessness so that others can take advantage of us socially and politically and economically, and make us dependent upon groups of people, and not just white people, but so-called bourgeois black people and others. They've divided us and then conquered us. There are groups of black people who take advantage of the powerlessness that is centered around the inner city project developments and ghettos that a lot of times black people find themselves in. It's not just white people, do you know what I mean, that take advantage of the powerlessness a lot of times that black people find themselves in. You have a situation called neocolonialism. And I'm going to describe this, but I don't want to make this video too long. It would be all too easy, but it would cause a lot of conflict if we can just say that all white people hate black people and want to take advantage of black people. That has been the systematized way that America was founded upon and has been run upon a lot of times to bring forth a sharp division between white people and black people. But that would cause an uprising if it was just that black and white. So you have a situation called neocolonialism, where there are black people who are selected and put in place to be in charge of certain positions politically, economically, so that black people will see a black face and think just because that person is black that there's been some progress where there's been no progress at all. It doesn't matter if you have a black head of a oppressive organization or an organization that really doesn't benefit those people who are members of that organization or who are citizens of that particular political party or congressional districts or city council precincts. You know what I mean? Just because you have a black city councilman doesn't mean that that black city councilman will see it and view it as their responsibility to represent the black people of their district or the black people of their party or the black people of their organization or the black people of their country. You know what I mean? A lot of times they are put there to serve the interests of somebody else and to try to trick you into thinking that progress has been made just because you see a black face. You know what I mean? But listen to what is being said. Think about what is being done, especially over time. You know what I mean? Has your position improved because you have a black head supposedly representing you? Has your position improved economically? Has your position improved politically or by the policies that are advanced from that so-called black person being in that position? Have you been empowered? Have you been strengthened to take care of your lives or to be ahead of your family or has your community become any more safe? You know what I mean? Have there been jobs created that you and your people can take advantage of because of that black face in that position? Have you become any more safe? Are they advocating that you should be empowered to the top levels that you can be on a citizen-based level, on a human level, on as children of God, that you deserve what other people, what other communities take advantage of and take for granted, you know? But like I said, I didn't want this to be that long, so I say, what breaks my heart a lot of times is black people do not have the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding, particularly the understanding, to be able to give themselves grace as individuals and particularly as a collective. We are just as harsh and sometimes even more harsh on ourselves than other groups, racially, ethnically, are hard on us. We are just as ignorant or even more ignorant on our own self-worth as human beings, as children of the Most High. We have been brainwashed just as thoroughly as them. And a lot of times we hate ourselves even more than they do through ignorance, through conditioning. You know what I mean? We're quick to say, and this is black people, we're quick to say and comment on the fact that we're the only race that don't support one another. We're the only race that can't come together in love and empathy and compassion and true support for one another. We say this, and it is a fact that we are the only race that fits that description. But who taught us to hate ourselves? Who taught us to hate on ourselves? Who taught us to hate each other? Who taught us to hate on each other? That has to be discussed, because if we only discuss the reality minus the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding of how that came to be, then we become abusers of ourselves. We become ridiculers and shamers and slanderers and libelers against each other, against ourselves and against each other. If you don't have an understanding, a knowledge, a wisdom, an understanding of the history that produced a people who are hateful, who are unconfident, who are fearful, you know what I mean? Who view themselves to be victims and dependents upon others for their existence in this world. If you don't understand how that came to be, then you can't be of true aid to yourself and to others amongst you. You know what I mean? You will be divided. You will be conquered. You will be reduced to advocating an allegiance to outsiders. For your own salvation. And you won't be able to truly take possession of your so-called religious beliefs in a benevolent God or creator or source You'll have that on your lips, but you won't truly practice that and believe in that. You'll be more faithful to organizations, to political organizations, to corporate organizations, to economic policies and political parties. You'll be more allegiant to and dependent upon those people and those organizations, corporate and others. Then you are connected to the empowerment, the benevolence of Creator and Source, to know that you deserve to be just as free as other people take it for granted, and actually practice and exercise freedom while you're practicing and exercising division and fear and control. So again, I'm going to end this right now. Black people deserve grace. Black people deserve empathy and compassion and support, particularly from Black people themselves. This is something that we have to gift ourselves with. I don't expect that grace, that empathy, that compassion to come from those who have been taught to look down on us. Even though I will accept it if it comes, from so-called allies from other races and ethnicities. You know what I mean? I will accept it if it comes. I welcome having conversations about equity and justice and humanity and truth. You know what I mean? A truth and a love that goes beyond division and bigotry and hatred. I do believe that there are good people in this world that don't segment themselves to keep racism alive, to keep bigotry and hatred alive. So I'm willing to build with you from other races, other ethnicities, other genders, other age groups, other nationalities. If you are interested in bringing forth a more compassionate practice of humanity and godliness, I'm down to discuss those issues with you so that we can propose solutions that we can begin to build upon and enact in this world to make this world more equitable for all who are concerned. But particularly, I expect other Black people to stop practicing a divide and conquer. You know what I mean? Light skin against dark skin, older versus younger. This gender versus that gender. You know what I mean? This particular geographically based and situated group of our population, we're northerners and you're a Southerner, so we can't practice any type of group consciousness. I'm from the East, you're from the West. Or broadening it to the so-called African diaspora. You know, I'm West Indian, I'm Jamaican, I'm African from the continent, you know, or other segments. I'm Afro-Latino, I'm Afro-Brazilian. And a lot of times, you know, based upon those shades or those those differences, we practice division instead of practicing collaboration and being able to complement one another. Being true, of course, to our experiences, but being willing to learn from and grow from and share the best of what our particular experiences and perspectives can add to humanity. We need to begin to learn how to practice a diversity amongst us for the best of all of us, based upon true justice and empathy and compassion. You know what I mean? But like I said, black people, so-called American blacks, who have had the worst experience historically based upon racial injustices, systemic racial injustices and oppression. We have to learn and grow in knowledge and wisdom and then understanding so that we can give ourselves grace that comes from understanding why we are so downtrodden, why we are so ratchet and hateful against ourselves and against each other. Because only then will we begin to be able to heal from being brainwashed to be the number one persecutors of ourselves. A long time ago, and I'm going to finish on this note, a long time ago in a speech that I was listening to from Minister Farrakhan, he said that you have to be able to help black people. You have to be able to love them stronger than they hate themselves. You have to be able to love them stronger than they hate themselves. And that level of love can only come from understanding of why and how they have been reduced to being so hateful. That level of grace can only come from a true understanding of what has happened and what has been done to knock them down so far, so low on the human spectrum that they don't even register sometimes as humans, that they register more on the level of parasites and criminals and savage animals. You know what I mean? You have to have an understanding of why they are so low. And you have to be able to cut through how ugly they can be, how hateful, how repulsive they can be, to still view them as human beings, to still view them as children of the Most High. Some of them need hugs instead of your ridicule and your shame and your judgment. Some of them, all of them, for that matter, need empathy, an understanding, a compassion. You know what I mean? Like they said, hurt people, but healed people can heal people. I present myself as one of those who practices healing. And it is my endeavor, my goal, to be able to heal other black people particularly, but all members of the human family. I want all members of the human family to find healing that comes from grace, that comes from love, that comes from empathy and compassion and grace, mercy and forgiveness. I want that for all members of the human family. But as they say, charity begins at home and then spreads abroad. They say think globally but act locally. You know what I mean? So as a black man that comes from the projects, that comes from the ghetto, it's my burden, it's my perspective to want that healing to start with other members of the black family. I want that healing to start there, just as it had to take up root in me to learn how to heal from my trauma, from my pain, from my misery. I had to heal as an individual first to be able to offer healing outside of myself. You know what I mean? So, all right, family. Peace and love and elevation. This is Brother Mike X. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please share this message. And please begin to give yourself the grace that comes from an expansion and awareness of knowledge, of wisdom, of understanding of what has been done to knock us down so far, so low on the human spectrum as black people. Give yourself the grace of learning how to become a healer, a light worker. You know what I mean? In this dark and decaying world. Peace and love.